People with mental illnesses, what do you think was your first sign? Having the "if I just died today" thought in the back of my mind every day, for well over a decade now, even on the days when good/great things happened. Yo! I'm also someone who is seriously meh about living. If I died today, nothing would even matter. I've also got tics, you see. There's a bunch of undealt with stuff in my head, and after a particularly rough batch, I started telling myself tomorrow. Like, if there's a tomorrow, you'll be fine today, kinda mantra. Now that I'm back on my feet somewhat, I still blurt it out 5 or 6 or 7 times a day. It's annoying, but at the same time, maybe a mantra like that can help your head space? It did for me for a while. When I got out of getting mugged. It was like something out of a movie. I was walking alone at night through a park and a man pulled a knife on me, demanding my wallet. At the time I was going through a pretty rough batch. I had divorced the previous year. My wife refused to let me see our kids, in case I said something bad about her. A child support order had come through taking out nearly half of my paycheck, and all of the friends I made when I was married were supporting my ex, because she's going through a lot. So I figured, fuck it, and told the man that if he killed me, he could have my wallet. The would-be mugger called me a crazy-ass motherfucker and walked away disgusted. And that's when I realized I might have a problem. Paranoid schizophrenic here. Didn't know until I had my first psychotic episode after smoking a joint for the first time in ages. I thought snipers were aimed at my window. Caused me a major panic attack. I couldn't go near any windows. I broke down and got an ambulance. Once at the hospital, I told someone what my beliefs were and he referred me to the psych wing. Couple weeks later was diagnosed and put on daily meds, which I'm still taking 11 years later. It's hard to really know what the actual first signs were, because I felt fine. I'd say maybe obsessing over things. Being oddly quiet. Talking to myself. Thinking of achieving very unrealistic goals constantly. Dunno. I was feeling so incredibly frustrated by everything. Going to school every day, going to classes I didn't care about, I couldn't hold back the tears of boredom. I felt like every day was being stolen from me and draining my energy. Everyone else seemed so content. I felt like I was going to explode. I needed to do something, feel something. This explains me to a T right now. Have you seen a professional to figure out if it's depression? Have you gotten something to help? Being suicidal at age 9 was a pretty big sign. But I think I was about 4 when it became clear that something was very wrong with me. It is a hard question to answer since my parents were abusive and most of my issues are caused by abuse. So, I'd say that I sort of always thought of myself as a failure because of how my parents treated me. I legitimately didn't think people were supposed to have emotions since I got yelled at any time I had an emotion. And because I wasn't allowed to cry, I began self-harm in early elementary school. By middle school I carried a razor blade with me everywhere I went just in case I had to get rid of emotions. Edit. My diagnoses are complex post-traumatic stress disorder and borderline personality disorder, thanks to my parents, generalized anxiety disorder, ADHD, and chronic insomnia, which my therapist thinks might actually be delayed sleep phase disorder. Huge sign was insomnia, but I think my insomnia and depression are linked. Whenever I had insomnia, I had a depressive episode. Although, in the beginning the depression was light, in which I only lost motivation and questioned a lot. It's also a good sign of a manic episode. I have the same problem. I'm not sure if the depressive/manic episodes are caused by lack of sleep or if I'm not sleeping because of the episodes. I can go days without eating a single thing when I have them too. I feel like I'm fine and it's all in my head, but then someone asks me if I'm okay and I just break down because I realize that I'm not when it's pointed out to me. I haven't been diagnosed with anything because I'm scared to see a doctor and they will tell me I'm faking it all because of how mainstream mental illnesses are becoming. I got ADHD. I think the first thing that told was when the teacher in 3rd grade explained the assignment and I had a really hard time paying attention. So I asked her to repeat and she wouldn't, so I just flat out didn't do it. A month later we had a conference, and what really made me mad during it was my teacher interrupt the principal and me parent by saying, "I think he might have severe ADHD." Which I don't have. But we did test and found out I did have minor ADHD. This isn't the first sign, but it's one I remember the most. BTW anyone reading this. I hope you have a nice day or night. I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 8. I feel like maybe it was how easily it was to distract me and how I had 5 different conversations in my mind while the teacher was talking. I still couldn't tell left from right till I was 13. It was a miracle I wasn't bullied through middle school. In fact, people actually liked me as a person. When I was 3 I lost my favorite stuffed animal. My cousin had the same stuffed animal, and I found it in her closet. I thought it was mine, but she said it was hers and the family agreed. Well, I still thought it was my animal. My cousin was lying to me, and the entire family knew the animal was really mine and were conspiring, although I didn't use that word at 3 lol, against me to keep it a secret and keep me from my favorite toy. I believe that to be my first paranoid thoughts. I have paranoid schizophrenia. If you don't mind me asking, how/when did you experience your other symptoms? I've had similar paranoid thoughts from a really young age. I've always just chalked it up to being cynical, but I suspect my dad is schizoaffective, so I'm a little concerned. Anxiety here. I have emetophobia, fear of sickness and vomit, which triggers me. Some of my first symptoms of anxiety were whenever I was sick, I would shake and hyperventilate. This started around age 8. Every time I've ever thrown up, or had anyone throw up around me, is vividly ingrained in my memory. The main panic attacks came around the same time. I'd panic at any time of change. As a kid I'd always miss out on sleepovers due to anxiety. I've also had this since childhood. It has greatly affected my eating patterns, because I'm afraid to get food poisoning. That has evolved into not being able to eat outside and lately not even eating foods that could get stuck in my throat and make me gag. I know how silly it sounds whenever I try to explain it to others. I feel like I'm getting better at reducing this fear, but it's still always at the back of my mind. Do you have any tips to get over it or ways of calming myself in these situations? Wow, I didn't realize there was a technical term for the fear of throwing up. Even as an adult I have a panic attack when I know I'm going to throw up. Bad enough that I hyperventilate to the point that my hands and legs cramp. But here I am, thinking I was just an oddball. This is what my mom told me. She is a labor and delivery nurse, if that helps her credentials at all. She noticed my lack of interest and my inability to focus started becoming an issue around 3rd grade. Kids that young can't have depression. After paying attention and really noticing my behavior and patterns, she was like, "Damn, he does have depression and anxiety." Super on top of things. A couple therapists scoffed at her and watched me play with toys, then determined I was fine and boys will be boys. By 8th grade I was a clusterfuck incarnate. By 14-15 I started medication trials. Thanks mom. Still depressed. Still anxious. But thanks for being my advocate. I went through extensive therapy to deal with my autism, and the only way you'd notice it now is if you were specifically looking for it. When I was younger it was much more noticeable and I struggled a lot with making friends and interacting normally with other people. It's a very complex condition. Everyone experiences it differently, but in my experience some things that made me stand out were failure to stay on topic, and unable to have normal conversations. Extreme obsessiveness and meltdowns at even the slightest inconvenience. Failure to understand body language and other social norms. I was aware of the fact that I didn't understand but didn't know how to fix it. A failure to relate to the emotions of other people. This is often interpreted as being unable to experience empathy, but that's not the case. We just experience empathy differently than other people.